So to talk a bit about AI, really what it really is in the end is models. And there are many models out there and they all do different tasks. And you can think of each model as its own little program, right? It's got a specific purpose to it and it does something for you. There are large models and there are tiny models. Like, large models would be something like ChatGPT. Tiny models would be very specialized. You can't really communicate with them with words, but you can give them some data. They can do something with that data and output an answer for you that you have on that. And so when we're talking about models are really just created almost databases. They're way more advanced than that, but you can think of it as just adding in a lot of data into a very specialized sort of container, which are called models, and the type of data that you feed into it and the way it's created will sort of create that outcome-based sort of solution around it. So an easy way to think of it is, we want to create a model which can understand when you give it images, is this an image of a cat or is it an image of a tree? A very simple idea. And so the way that works is that you'll get millions of images of cats. And each time you add a cat to the model, you'll tag that image and you'll say, this is a cat. And each time you add a picture of a tree, you'll tag it and say, this is a tree. And overall, once it's all in there and all those images are in there, what we're really doing is then being able to feed new images to it that's never seen before of a cat or a tree or something else and say to it, is this a cat or a tree? And based on that understanding it has and all the data it really has inside it, it can then make a predictive analysis in it and go, yes, this looks like a cat, this looks like a tree. That's really what we're doing here. And so even something like ChatGPT is really just an expansion of that. What that does is instead of feeding it images of cats and trees, they basically fed it the entire internet. You can almost think of it that way in terms of words and human language. And it's looked at conversations about how people have conversations. And when someone asks something, what the most likely answer is from that. So when you change to something like ChatGPT, which is obviously a large language model, really what it's doing is it's trying to predict what the answer to that would be. Your question, and it's trying to predict what would the sentence be to answer this or to sort of reply to this. It has no understanding of it. It doesn't know what you're asking. It has no intelligence really behind it. It's just predicting. And that's really what all of these models are. And so when you're looking at a solution for your business and you're looking at, okay, I have this process and right now we have some existing either manual process or we have some very complicated IT architecture that, takes a lot to maintain, that's costly, can we instead offload that to one of these specialized models that can do it for us a lot easier, a lot cheaper, and often a lot more effectively. That's one way of looking at it. Other ways, these models are just bringing out functionality which would be extremely hard to do before. Like again, ChatGPT. Yes, technically you could program and write an application that could pretend it's ChatGPT that has no error at all, but just sort of analyzing words and trying to come up with some crazy way of sort of responding. And in the past, there have been attempts at that, but nothing like ChatGPT. So really AI is also opening up new doors as well as sort of being able to improve efficiency of existing ones. So when we're looking at models, there's sort of a way to perceive them. Okay, we know models can do things for us. What models are there out there? There's really two ways of going about it. You can create your own models from scratch, or you can use existing models that are out there. And there are loads out there. And so really when you're thinking about AI and models, you're almost sort of browsing a shopping center of models. That's sort of the perspective I would take in it, and looking at what's out there, seeing are there existing models, and there's loads of open source ones, there's proprietary ones like, again, ChatGPT and OpenAI models. And you're really sort of browsing the category of them out there and going, which one of these would best fit my use case? And you can grab a few of them. There might be for your solution several models, some proprietary, some paid, some open source. And you can feed your data into it and sort of see, okay, how does that work? So a very simple example would be, looking at a predictive model and going, okay, I want a model that just does sentiment analysis. I'm going to feed it some text and I want to understand what's the sentiment behind that. Is a sentiment that, this is looking good or is it looking bad? So let's say we're trying to analyze financial data and we feed in an entire news article about, some company that we're looking into. We can gain sentiment out of that and get a score out of that. And that's all the model does. It doesn't do anything else for you. You can't chat to the model. You can just feed it information. It gives you a number and it says the sentiment around this is looking bad. And you go, okay, great. Then you feed a million different news articles and you automate this process. And that can just every day look at 20 companies and get an overview of all the public sentiments around these companies. You can make financial decisions based on that. So very specialized models around that. And for that, the open source models that you can use. When we're taking a step back from this, we can spin up a model within a day that can start doing this and we can build some solution around it. Otherwise, if we didn't have that model, to try and do this sort of predictive analysis manually or to try and do it with experts or extremely sophisticated software would take years to probably build out with experts. and it would be an extremely complicated thing to do, whereas models really simplify this. They're like a shortcut to be able to spin up really interesting and powerful solutions.